Now, anybody that's making a snuff film is not going to give their real name.
Yeah.
I mean, so...
Well, he's pretty recognizable, too. I mean, you could pick him out in a profile, no problem.
And I talked to the kid, and he said that that was just the name that was given him, and he knew, he didn't know Hunter S. Thompson from Geronimo. So there was a photographer who worked for Larry King who said that Hunter S. Thompson was part of the ring, but I think that he is lying about that. I actually gave him a photo lineup of 5 pictures, one of which was Hunter Thompson, and he could not point out who Hunter Thompson was. So,
smear campaign, most likely, because Hunter was doing some pretty amazing work up until the time of his death.
Yeah, it's but I don't think Hunter Thompson was involved in it.
No, I don't either. I mean,
that's the conclusion that I've come to.
Let's, for people who are maybe just tuning in, we're talking to Nick Bryant. He has authored a new book, Updated Investigative Information about the Franklin Scandal. That is the use of pedophile rings in order to smear and blackmail our politicians and leaders here. Very important stuff. That is available, again, at trineday.net, 800-556-2012. But if people are just tuning in, I mean, don't we need to understand the history of this? That this goes back to, Tiberius. I mean, this is what the elites have done. This is their appetite. They have done this for thousands of years, Nick. It's not that hard to understand when you look at history. Are we supposed to understand that maybe 100 years ago we became so civilized that this doesn't happen anymore?
Well, I had a real hard time getting my mind around this. The power elite stating themselves. And I talked to people that were involved with this pedophile network, and actually I talked to a woman psychologist in Washington, D.C. that counsels various people in politics that have pedophilic inclinations and that actually want to get help. And she put forth that we're talking about guys that can have steak every night. I mean, especially like some of the individuals that partook of these kids. I mean, the names that have come up are kind of mind-boggling. And these are the kind of guys that could have $1,000 an hour hookers, 12 at a time. So ultimately, and they've got to have some kind of kink to begin with, but ultimately they go from not wanting steak to wanting forbidden fruit. And I think that I think that might be the progression there. But
the rest of us stop ourselves at a certain point, Nick. I mean, come on. I'm an old, rock and roller. At some point, I had groupies and everything. At some point, you stop yourself and you don't become Marquis de Sade. Hold on. I want to bring you back after this break, Nick. Nick Bryant is with us. His new book, The Franklin Scandal, available at trineday.net. We'll come back. We'll pick up where we left off. Stay tuned. All right, we've just got a few minutes left with our guest today. Nick Bryant, if you're just tuning in, has written a new book. It's just about to be published, The Franklin Scandal, a story of Powerbrokers, child abuse, and betrayal. Nick, we're just talking about how people can sink to this level. And, in the last segment, I'm just talking about, I don't care, what my sexual appetite is. At some point, I'm going to stop myself. At some point, I'm not going to hurt children. I don't know how these people rectify this. I don't know how they can live with this. Do you? I mean, you just investigated this for so many years. Your state of mind has to be affected just by reading it and talking to these people.
Yeah, it's been very brutal. I just felt it was the right thing to do, though, and that I feel that this thing is still going on. I believe that where there's a demand, there's a supply, and I think other networks around the country have been uncovered like this one, but the window was shut really quickly on any type of investigation. The feds have a tremendous amount of power. The feds can come in and shut down any kind of a state investigation.
And when they're involved, of course, they're going to do that. If one of them is implicated and it leads to more, I mean, we saw what happened to the D.C. Madam, and that was a light version of what you've covered with the Franklin cover-up. And we talk about, sexual addiction and these things that escalate and turn these leaders into Roman emperors, for God's sakes. But, I've always thought it was more like this. From the Seinfeld show. If you're one of us, you'll take a bite. I mean, it's a form of initiation, isn't it?
I think that that's also true, too. I mean, I think some of these people are genuinely depraved, sick people. And they're, I mean, people can project, and some people are just photogenic on television. I mean, O.J. Simpson was probably one of the most beloved Americans until he decapitated a couple of people. I mean, we really never know what really lurks below or lurks in the darkest heart of some of our politicians.
But is it your belief, because it is mine, that you don't rise to that kind of power unless they have that something on you? We look at Obama, and there was some, really nasty rumors coming out before he was selected to be a teleprompter reader-in-chief. And you just think that these guys can't get to this point unless they've participated in this somehow, unless there is some kind of way to be blackmailed so that they can be ultimately controlled.
Well, I know of a senator who ended up in Clinton's cabinet, and he was named in a pedophile investigation, and he was the mayor of kind of a sleepy little town, and then he became a U.S. senator, and then he was named a cabinet member. So, and I kind of dug into his background, and he's not in the book. I just didn't have enough goods to really bring his name up into the book, unfortunately. But he seemed to have been like a freak from high school. I mean, he seemed to have developed, even as a star high school athlete, he seemed to have developed some very sick predilections. And in his case, I think his sick predilections was actually a good career move.
So in other words, they seek these people out, and they're the ones that are elevated into positions of power, and they don't have to push too many buttons. They don't have to give them offers they can't refuse. They just look for those kinds of people.
When a number of years ago, there was that gubernatorial race in Louisiana where Edwin Edwards, a convicted felon, was running against David Duke, a KKK Grand Wizard. And Edwin Edwards, someone asked him if he thought, if he was worried about losing this election. He goes, I'm running against a Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. The only way I can lose this election is if they find me in bed with either a live boy or a dead woman. I mean, but
that's the old adage in Washington, D.C. Never get caught with a live boy or a dead woman. I guess that didn't bother Joe Scarborough, who had a dead woman draped over his congressional desk and is now doing a morning talk show on MSNBC General Electric.
Well, I've found doing this story that the hypocrisy of some knows no bounds. Now, we are all hypocrites to a certain degree, for sure. But some people are just very salient hypocrites. And I mean, Congressman Foley is a perfect example. He was going to bat for kids and kids' issues, and he turned out to be a pedophile himself. You've got a talking head like Bill O'Reilly talking about family values and
loofahs
and phone sex with a woman that was a producer on a show. So it's kind of unfortunate, but the hypocrisy of some knows no bounds. And Mark Foley was obviously excoriated and kicked out of the Congress, but Bill O'Reilly keeps moving right along. So
they caught Rush Limbaugh with hillbilly heroin, and he was an addict, and now he's the leader, the de facto leader of the Republican Party. Perfectly fitting. Nick, I got to have you back when this book comes out, because there's so much I wanted to get into today, and we just didn't have a lot of time. When is it out, and when can people buy it and read it?